So we're supposed to record this, obviously, on Wednesday after we surf the pool.
Yeah. We'll just kind of...
Fate conspired to find us here on Juneteenth, which probably relates to more to what we're going to be talking about anyways.
I think it's almost even better.
But still, let's cover the pool first.
Sure.
We'll get to that in a minute. What was your guys' experiences? We're talking the Palm Springs Surf Club. Tell me. What you guys enjoy?
Well, I think I think we've all pretty much surfed I haven't surfed BSR, but we've both done ranch. I'm assuming you've done ranch.
Yeah.
And now we've done this. And I got to say, one's like Willy Wonka land, right? And it's just an endurance thing, that wave.
Which, Kelly's?
The surf ranch.
Yeah.
But it took me it took a lot more for me to get used to that wave because it's not like surfing in the ocean at all because it's going away from you. This one, I had already surfed it once, so I was already ready, but Shane had programmed a bunch of new waves just for us that hadn't been ridden yet.
Yeah.
I think he had played with it, but dude, I had a field day, and I thought we were only doing a half day.
Yeah.
I don't ever get to surf that long.
Me neither.
Unless I'm on a trip, and even then, I'm wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Your face, dude.
I surfed them all. I surfed the first Texas one that was in Austin, which was basically like a 2-foot day.
Inland.
Inland. I surfed BSR, Kelly's 3 times, and now Palm Springs. And I would say that Palm Springs is the most fun that I've had. In that, I don't know, there's something about the repetition of it. Yeah. Like, it's a 90-second break, and here we go again. Similar to BSR, but it's 2 hours away. And I don't know, I just had a lot of fun. There was an ability to, like, sit there and just try and dial shit in and just kind of lock in and focus. It's also just surreal to be in Palm Springs and surfing an extremely fun wave that will crack you in a mini pool. Like, it's the smallest of all of the ones.
That's what blew my mind when I first surfed it. I was like, this pool's tiny.
It's tiny. It's tiny. It's not even an Olympic-sized pool.
You know what it reminded me of? Typhoon Lagoon in Orlando.
Similar size.
It's similar size pool. That thing just kind of flushes and kicks out this wedgie A-frame, though.
There's a lot more similarities with this as with Waco than there is with Kelly's. Kelly's its own thing.
Kelly's is a boat trip.
But the Waco pool, you're always surfing like 5 feet away from the wall.
Yes.
You take off next to the wall, and then you surf at the wall, and so it just doesn't feel like a wave. And it's actually, the wave isn't peeling down the beach; it's just going straight. Whereas this, I feel like, felt more like an ocean wave.
Exactly.
The other detail I think was different for me is we all have that much experience in other wave pools, so the novelty of it is worn off. You can kind of almost settle into your skin a little bit more, and it feels like an ocean in that way too.
Yeah,
it's not as scary or not as many nerves like I had at Kelly's pool. You get one wave every 5 minutes, all the pressure in the world. You can never quite settle down.
You can't. The hard thing about the surf ranch is it's like being on a boat trip.
Yep.
You don't want to blow it.
Yeah,
no, dude. Exactly. There's a lot,
which
of pressure.
inevitably makes you blow it.
Yep.
Yeah, you surf. Like, I just looked at a bunch of footage from the last time I was there, and I'm like, wow, I'm surfing like there's a leash on me. Like, I'm trying to have as much fun as possible, but also I can't let fully loose because that literally just cost me money.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Dude.
Falling costs money at the surf ranch unless you are like fuck you wealthy, where you're like, maybe we should stay another day. Yeah. It makes you appreciate the level at which the pros surf at just in general.
Yep.
Yeah. That they can go in there and crack the way they do. But I think, hands down, if you want to just like get better at surfing, Palm Springs is 2 days at Palm Springs, like dialed in.
One, hey guys, send the A-frame. I want the A-frame. Oh no, send the freaking shifting airwave on the left. No, let's make the right have an air section. I want that one.
Yeah.
There's literally a menu.
Yeah, and
it's crazy.
It's also less predictable. It's less perfect than BSR, and so it does feel a little bit like each wave you're kind of reacting more to what the wave is doing as
Like the
opposed to
ocean.
like, oh, this is what it's going to do.
Yeah.
It has
Which-
an ocean feel.
Yeah, which is a beneficial thing because if you know exactly what the wave's going to do, you start imposing your will before you even paddle into the wave, and it ruins everything.
Yeah. And
If you're
Yeah.
just going off of instinct and attuning to the ocean, that's kind of when you surf your best.
and it's comparative. It's more comparative to your average day.
Exactly.
With your average
Yes.
day at home, if you got 3 turns, you're on one wave.
You're losing your mind.
You're psyching. If you got 2 good ones,
Yeah.
you're pretty happy.
Exactly. Like the second half of the day, because we were in the same heat, when they threw up that playful right. So it was like the first one we surfed, but I would say better. And you just were like, oh, chomping at the bit because all of a sudden we could get 2 or 3 turns in, and you could just load up.
Yeah, you could learn. That was the best session for me on the backhand, and it made me think like, oh, I could come here and actually work out the very hardened kinks,
Yep.
like the bad habits I've settled into because of surfing less. I was like, oh, you could do a couple days here, you could work that out.
I've only seen you surf randomly a few times, few video clips over the years or whatever. I saw you surf the best that I've ever seen you surf in Palm Springs. Those 2 rights that you got kind of in a row, you absolutely hammered.
Yeah. What did I say? Meat hooks?
Combo Nation.
Those meat
Thanks.
hook turns?
Those thank you, I appreciate
Ridiculous.
that was vintage me. That's like how I used to surf on the regular.
But it felt good, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
it
I mean,
felt amazing. I was like, oh, I know this
Yeah.
dude.
yeah. And it was like I could see you getting there on all the other waves. Like I could see that you had it. You just hadn't pulled it together. But those 2, it was just like
Yeah.
boom,
It was
boom in
really,
sequence.
really cool to see that, especially after our session at Porto. And how that shit ended. And to see him just, once he dialed it in, just cut loose. And right after, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun.
You get a
It
lot-
was fun to get Shane to ring the bell.
Oh yeah, that's right. That always does feel good when you hear that bell. You're like,
I was
all right,
like,
cool.
oh.
Well, I wasn't the only one who thought that
I
was cool.
made Shane back happy.
So for listeners, this pool was an already existing pool that they just added this tech to. But once it gets open to the public, they're tearing this down, then building a new pool, then it'll be open to the public. So the new pool to the public will be 3 times the size.
Yep.
The bottom contours will be designed for this, whereas they've
It's
just
gonna
used
be
what they
nuts.
got.
It's insane. I mean,
gonna be
I
crazy.
think Shane put it really good. It has 1 million gallons of
Yeah.
water in it now. When it's done, it'll be 3 million gallons.
Yeah.
And
which
more
is
pistons, more pumps.
more pumps, more pistons, 40 feet wider on each side. I forget how much longer.
Dude.
It's gonna be. I mean, I think the one wave that's probably gotten me the most psyched to watch, where I'm like, I want to go there, was that demo day that Billabong did in Melbourne.
Oh yeah.
That's the plunger one, right?
No,
No.
that's the one by the airport with the left and the right that go at the same time.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
That's the only one where I'm like, that looks that's the only one that makes me the most curious. But what these guys, I believe that what's going to happen in Palm Springs is going to be top end.
Final question regarding the pool: has the novelty faded for you
Hell
guys
no.
at all?
Hell no, absolutely not. You know why? Because I couldn't figure out the barrel. I never got it
Okay.
dialed. So
I definitely want to go back very, very soon.
yeah.
We're in the pool. I forget who I was talking to, but we were comparing it to a drug. Because it's like you get one wave and instantly you're like, okay, I just want more. And
Yeah.
part of it is I didn't quite do what I was trying to do. So let me try it again real quick. But ultimately, by the end of the day, I had 100 waves and I never fully surfed to my potential.
When was the last
Because you're never
time
going to, you know?
You had 100 waves.
Never.
in, like,
Dude, it's been...
maybe when I was 22.
No, the last 6 months total combined all my waves and maybe I got 100.
Every 90 seconds,
Yeah.
it wasn't a matter of if, but which.
Yeah.
Every 90 seconds.
Yeah. Guaranteed.
The only one
All
I
day
felt
long.
a little pressure on was the barrel. Don't blow it. Because that was what? Like
Every 4
one
minutes.
barrel, they'd sent the precursor wave, and then there was 2.
Yeah, but the problem with that too is it's great that you're able to practice and like whatever mistake you made now, you get to try again in 100 seconds or whatever it is on the next one. But as you're refining that, fatigue starts wearing in.
Yep.
So it's kind of like as soon as I felt like, oh my God, now I know what I'm doing, my body wasn't reacting as
Yep.
quick. My brain wasn't reacting as
Yep.
quick. And then you start realizing, God, I need to tighten up my athleticism. I need to tighten up my diet.
I definitely
Oh,
felt
man.
very grateful for my fitness at the pool. I was like, oh, this is why I train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I never felt fatigued, and I just wanted to keep going. I only left because I had to.
I need to get on your regimen
I had
because as soon as I finish my lunch,
Oh, this dude was
was-
cramping.
I know.
I was in there. Oh, dude, I'm cramping, blowing it, just blowing it. That right, and it was right during that heat when they switched it to the more playful, right?
I felt for you.
I was stretching my leg out.
Were you sore yesterday?
No, I trained yesterday. I ran Temescal Canyon yesterday. I felt good.
Good for you.
Did you collide hard with the bottom though? Did you bounce?
I did. I bounced off my hip pretty good.
Yeah, I got my lower back, which is really sore, that bone back
I
there.
do
and
something called Ramwad.
Don't know what that is.
I'm not trying to give a free pitch, but they're not an advertiser on this show. But if you want to like work on your mobility without feeling kooky or like too zenny, Ramwad.
Okay. Just
I'm
look it
putting
up.
my notes.
ROMWOD. 50.
Give me the 30-second pitch. What is it?
It's 12, 15, 20-minute mobilization stretch workouts.
Okay.
But from an athletic perspective,
So not
you're
yoga.
and non-yoga,
Okay.
guided through mobility for strength and performance.
Okay. I could do 20 minutes a day.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't have time, you can just hit like, oh, I'll do the 12-minute version.
Right. And you'd watch it online or sign
Yeah,
up
you
for
watch
it?
it online.
Okay. Okay. So Juneteenth. I presume some of our listeners, especially non-Americans, may have no familiarity with it. Who wants to give us the quick rundown on what today commemorates?
I'm going to let him break it down, but I will tell you this, just in my shop here, in my factory, half my crew members didn't know what it was.
Right.
So it is not, it should be a nationally celebrated thing. I won't really call it a holiday, but it should be nationally celebrated for sure.
Yeah. In 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation was declared that slavery had ended in America at the
Which-
post end of the Civil War. However, because what's that?
It didn't.
Yeah, because of lack of Wi-Fi
Yeah. In 18,
in 1863, the ability to get the messaging out and have to act immediately wasn't there. And Texas was one of the states that were like, oh, we can't hear you, we can't hear you.
Yeah.
And also, conveniently, during the Civil War, many of the southern states sent their slaves, their capital, to Texas for safety. Like, we're fighting, hold on to these for me. I'll pay you
Yep.
something for it when this thing is over, and we'll take our slaves back. And so those people continued on as if slavery was happening for another 2 years. And it wasn't until 1865 when a ship showed up in the Gulf of Texas to tell the people of Texas that, hey, it's a wrap, y'all lost, slavery's over. And those imagine being a human being and finding out in that moment, I am free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out from underneath these chains, these
Yep.
whips.
And what was that
the
date?
Total, and that was June 19th,
Yep.
1865. Thus became commemorated within Black America as Juneteenth, as this. It's basically it's Black people's 4th of July.
Yep. And you know what I think is cool? Like, I get notifications now. I got a notification from Google Calendar or something a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Juneteenth, it's a holiday.
But were you getting that notification last year?
No,
Right.
No,
I was not. I think that is based on today's climate.
Well, how much was
think-
that? How much was Juneteenth infused into you through your parents or your upbringing? Was it a part of
It
your
wasn't,
life?
honestly.
Okay.
It was not, part of my upbringing.
it wasn't a part of my upbringing because I'm first generation American.
Okay.
So my mom came from Haiti. My dad was a political exile from South Africa, fleeing apartheid. And so I didn't learn about Juneteenth until probably my late teens, early 20s through my black friends who were descendants of slave families. And it was never talked about, wasn't taught in school.
That's it.
It wasn't taught. It wasn't taught as a part of American history. You learn in high school about the Emancipation Proclamation, and then you just keep going. Slaves were freed and seen.
That's it. That's
you're made to feel. You're made to feel in our education system that because slavery ended then, that black people automatically were, for the most part, assimilated into society and having the ability to be free and true equality at an economic level, et cetera, when that was not the case and didn't even begin to become the case legally to almost be on the same footing and same playing field in the last 50 years.
Yeah.
And in practicality,
is still not.
Yeah.
Right.
And so it makes me, I'm understanding the shock, awe, and convenient ignorance and fear associated with people having to accept the full scope of racism in America. I don't condone, but I'm understanding why a certain sector of white people are so unwilling to be convinced that, you know, the ills that afflict and affect black people and marginalized people in this country have to do with them being less than or lazy or any of the other stupid things that are proposed to make them feel better about their place. And in the conversations that I've been having with people, I'm like, don't be mad. Understand that you are the beneficiary of a shitty education system. We've all been affected by, and some people benefit from a very shitty educational system in which what you don't know doesn't affect you.
Right.
Right.
So as you see these things happening to other people, it's very easy for you to be like, I don't know why everyone over here is getting all worked up. That has nothing to do with us. That has everything to do with them. And so we've been, you look at something like Juneteenth where suddenly people are like, oh my God, this is a thing? Like, it's been very easy for people to feel like they're not racist or they're not complicit within the system of white supremacy because they felt sympathy. Like, well, I felt bad for those people.
Yeah.
But the difference between what we're seeing right now is that the chasm between sympathy and empathy, two different things. Sympathy, you don't need to know anything. You can just see people in distress and feel bad. Empathy requires you to gain actual knowledge and context of the hows and whys they're in this situation, get some of that feeling, and then figure out what you can do to make a difference. Empathy requires action. Sympathy allows you to stand on the sidelines and say, but I'm not racist.
Right. I think a lot of what's activated or made me feel more activated by it with this since basically George Floyd was killed, is like these really human stories. In regard to Juneteenth, this morning on The Daily, they did an episode about it, and they were referencing a diary that a slave had written at that time. And she was saying, who was a young girl, and she was like, I didn't even know what freedom was. They came up and they said, hey, you're free. I didn't know what that even meant. And there were some people fleeing. She's like, I had never held money before, so I didn't even know how to like be a part of commerce in society. So that makes it much more realistic than what I learned in school, where it is kind of this broader topic that, you know, is wrong. And like you said, you could sympathize with it because I was raised with compassion and all that sort of thing. But there was kind of a granular level of humanity through hearing the story about the diary. And that diary, by the way, has been around. I had just never been exposed to it before, you know? And I feel like, Ryan, some of your stories in that Stab article made it more granular too. You know, to hear like what the actual real experience is.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting because after it came out, people just were like shocked that goes on today. And I'm like, the most approachable guy, the nicest guy, right? And it's just the thing that hurt me the most is that several of my black surfer friends came to me after they had read the article, and pretty much all of them, man, I have a similar story or multiple similar stories, and I was embarrassed, so I didn't want to share it. Thank you for sharing that. I'm like, that's one of the problems.
What do you think they were embarrassed about?
You don't want to tell people. You know, I was gone for 3 days, and people were like, "Oh, would you go on vacation?" You're straight up embarrassed because you are made to feel less than human.
Can you retell that story for listeners who didn't read the article?
I actually have a gnarlier one than that with how. We'll go with this one first, but basically, in my garage shaping days when my old label was Podunk, I had several team riders in the Malibu area. Took some boards up to paint pen them and spend the day, and they had a little barbecue. And long story short, we got a little tipsy. I'm not driving, my truck's parked at Point Doom, and my buddy says, "Let's go get some beers." He's smashed, and we go to the local gas station down the way, and he comes back, and it's Zumaris Drive, I think, right there. You pull in like you're going past drain pipes, and there's a little parking lot near the lifeguard tower, and he's like, "What's this?" And just starts spinning cookies in the parking lot, and who's there? Whoop, whoop. And so pull us over. First thing they say, guy cop, female cop, what? And dude, what are you doing, man? Like, are you out of your mind? They could smell beer on him. I was probably 6-7 beers deep. Obviously, I'm in passenger seat. And long story short, they take us out. We're in the back of the squad car, and I'm like, wait a second. What do you need my license for? Oh, have you been drinking? Yes. So I'm like, I think 26, 27 at the time. Give them my license. And they ran both our IDs. And 5 minutes later, we're in the back of the squad car. They give him a sobriety test. He basically fails. And they see on his ID, he's literally 2 minutes from home. They offer to drive his car back. Me, I'm still sitting there. And they're like, "Oh, yeah, we're going to take you in. Something came up." And I was like, "What? Wait, what? What are you talking about?" "Oh, you've got some pre-existing something." Mumble, mumble, mumble. Can you tell me, what does it say on your computer, sir? Yeah, it says you've got a warrant for some outstanding something with your registration. I'm like, I cleared that up months ago. I have the paperwork in my glove box. We're going to his place where my truck is. Can you just let me, we can get it out? And at this point, my friend's freaking out. He's like, "Oh, I'm wasted. I should have got a DUI. I'm going to get off. Let me just help my buddy. Let me get his paperwork. I'll get it for you." And the white cop straight up said, "No, it'll clear up. It'll clear up if it's cleared up. If you took care of it, you'll be in the system. It'll clear up. We're just going to take you in." So
for fucking registration.
For registration, mind you.
Not for a violent crime.
No, nothing violent whatsoever. For being black in Malibu, basically.
Yeah.
So they literally drive my friend who is wasted home to drop his ass off right at his house, and he's asked again, "Dude, can I just grab it?" Right? He has the paperwork that proves whatever the hell you're saying is false and wrong.
Because that's where your car was.
Yeah, so I'm looking at my truck, and they're like, "Nope, Mr. Harris, you're coming with us." Long story short, I ended up in the Twin Towers, and I was locked up for 2 freaking days. There was race riots going off, and I legitimately thought I was going to get lost in there. And, I was scared shitless.
And people who don't know, Twin Towers is
it's
county
the
jail.
gnarliest jail in L.A.
Yeah.
You do not want to be there.
2 days.
2 full days. I got in a call with the wifey, and she was freaked out because she hadn't heard from me. I finally got to see a judge. That's why I got out. I finally got to see a judge. What did he ask me? "Where's your paperwork?" And I literally lost it. I was like, "Dude, that is what I told. Are you kidding me right now?" I started yelling. He's like, "Calm down, sir." I'm like, "It is in my truck. It's registration. I took care of it. I shouldn't even be here. I'm a small business." And I just started going on around. He's like, "Oh, well, you're good."
They let you out.
And they let me out.
Crazy.
And so it was, but yeah, I felt less than human. It was really awful.
That's a trauma experience.
Yeah.
Like,
well, the other one was
what it
equally
takes.
bad.
What it takes for you to like get over that, and like you're walking around with that experience, but you're not talking about it. You're feeling it, and you're around your friends, and you want to say something, but you don't. Like, it takes you so long. And you listen to that story, right? And you think about Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta last week, who passes out drunk inside of a drive-thru. In this situation with Ryan, they're like, oh, you don't live far from here. We're going to take you home. Come back and get your car. Rayshard Brooks, they talked to for...
Cops drove his car
Drove
home.
his car.
Drove his car home.
Drove his car home.
Said, we'll park it right in your driveway. You're
problem.
good, sir.
We got you.
Yeah.
Rayshard Brooks, 46 minutes they talked to him before things got weird. The confrontation ensues, and he had been totally calm, etc., etc. He's on probation. They go to put cuffs on him. Doesn't make the right choice. But in that moment, judgment is passed, shot in the back twice, and people want to be like, well, you know, if you just do the right thing, you don't end up in that situation. I grew up, when I moved to SoCal, I ran with a bunch of like crazy kids that surfed and skated. We were getting pulled over left, right, and center when they were driving, whether they were buzzed or someone was hanging out of the car or any of the dumb shit that kids do, and they'd always get off. 9 times out of 10, they would get off, end up laughing with the police, etc. And I remember I would sit in the car and I'd be like, yo, this is... y'all have superpowers.
Yep.
When I would be driving by myself, without white people in the car, and be in a certain neighborhood, why are you here? Is this your car?
Yep.
Can you prove that you're supposed to be working here?
Yep.
All the, you know, your tag's expired. We're going to impound your car. What? Like, I work for minimum wage. Sir, it's just 2 months past. Like, don't we get a grace period? No, sorry.
Yep.
And it looks like you have a fix-it ticket. Yeah, we're just going to impound your car and compound the shit in your life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And that's the part that I like when I hear people being like, you know, if you just, you know, follow the rules and just obey everything, you wouldn't have these problems. And I understand, like, you know, most white people just have no concept of being in a fear state when they see the police. We were talking about the other day how growing up, you know, you're driving and the cop passes you, and your heart just starts beating. You're like, please don't turn around.
Or they're behind. How many times has a cop been behind you?
Oh shit!
And you literally start losing your shit.
They pass you, and you're like, please don't turn around. Please don't turn around. Please don't turn around. Whoop, you see the car flip around. You're like, here we go.
Yeah.
So now, like, even now, in my 40s, before I leave home, when I leave home and get in the car, it's a heat check. Okay, registration and insurance is not in the glove box. It goes up above in the visor so that I don't have to reach.
Yep.
So that,
oh my God, he's got a gun!
Because if the policeman asks me to put my hands in my glove box, to me, I'm going like, shit, this could not end up right. You know, I have my phone positioned in a certain way so that if I do get pulled over, I'm able to hit video and it's pointing in that direction. Hands on the 10 and 2, all the windows down, off, and I will not let go of that steering wheel the whole time we have the conversation. And I'm also going to try and regulate and keep cool and pretend like I still have a command of the English language. The only times that I've ever had to beg for my life, the only 2 times I've had to beg for my life have been at the hands of police on the other side of guns. I have a story similar to his.
Yep.
I used to clean car dealerships in Carlsbad at night. That was my gig. I'd clean the car dealerships from like midnight to 6. Then I'd go surf, and then I'd go sleep. And that was my gig. I was cleaning this dealership for years. Cops knew me. They'd be at the 7-Eleven, whatever. For some reason, some people were driving by. They saw me. They saw a black guy in a car dealership at night with lights on. Told the cops that they saw someone who was stealing cars. These motherfuckers showed up like the cavalry. Cars jumping over the center median. 4 or 5 cop cars out. Shotguns. Halogen lamps flashing. Get on the ground, get on the ground, get on the ground. And you're like tripping hands up in the air, and they're marching at you with shotguns.
Yep.
like drop down on the ground, hands clasped behind your head, like just praying, like literally physically praying, please don't let them kill me, please don't let me kill me, please don't let them kill me, kick you down, throw you on the ground, handcuffs behind your back, sit on the street corner handcuffed for an hour as you're explaining, like, why do you think I have a trash can and a vacuum cleaner and a van with cleaning supplies? Until finally they're like, okay.
Oh, we fucked up.
And they just let you go. And you're supposed to sit there and then go about your life.
And deal with it. Yep.
And when that shit happens over and over and over, you can't help but just cultivate a shell.
Yep.
No matter how nice the person is that you know that is a policeman and says that they're in it for the right reasons. And then when you see the various levels of what escalates to black men and women losing their lives, you like, we look at it and we're like, no, we know what that is.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've been on the edge of that happening more than once.
Because it could have been me.
Because it could have been me.
Yep.
I'm curious how much like that real world experience is similar or dissimilar to your surf world experience. Is the surf world experience a reprieve from that? Or is it exactly the same as that?
I think I've just, when I first started surfing out here, I noticed it a lot more. And now, like, you know, I'm a public figure. People know who I am. So I'm almost immune to it. And I think times have changed a little bit with regard specifically to surfers of color. There's a lot more black surfers now, at least where I surf. And I'm also in LA, right? Which is, you know, I'd say the biggest concentration of black people in California is in LA. So there's going to be naturally more black surfers, but it's just different. You know, I'm not fearing for my life.
That's true, yeah.
You know?
Have you experienced outright racism in surfing?
Early on, yes. Okay. But it was more of a, what are you doing here? It wasn't get out of the water inward. You know, it wasn't any of that.
It's not burning you because you're black. It's just...
Well, and, you know, at the time, my skill level wasn't that good. So I was probably getting burned because I was a kook.
Right.
Or because they were a racist asshole. I noticed it more in Orange County. I will tell you that for sure, and that is a fact. But in LA, I don't. It's mellowed out a lot, I think.
I don't experience it now because when I show up to the water, people know for the most part who I am.
Yep.
But my barrier to entry was 100% peppered with racism.
Was it?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
What?
Like,
so we're talking early 90s?
Early 90s, yeah.
Okay.
And even through into the early 2000s, like I would have experiences up until I got famous. I would have direct experiences.
Are we talking in the water or in the industry?
In the water.
Okay.
And in the industry. In the water, I can't count how many times someone thought that they had the balls enough to call me the nigger.
No way.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
That has never actually happened to me.
And it was always older, middle-aged,
yep,
incensed white men. Like, what are you doing in my space? Like this sense of ownership of like, this is ours. What are you doing here? Like the same kind of person who would be perplexed to see you leaving their neighbor's house because they don't have any black friends.
Right.
And I had plenty of those. Like in high school, it was rampant and all the time until it wasn't. And it took other kids that had my back and sort of defended me to get past that barrier to entry, like constantly being called a kook or, you know, you guys don't even swim.
That I get that.
Really?
And sometimes just flat out like calling you a nigger.
How did you respond to it at the time?
At the time, I just put my head down.
Okay.
I was also smaller then, so I just put my head down and I would ignore people. Once I got about 19, 20, and I came into my full size, I would just let all fury reign on people. I would go off. I just would let them know, like, this is just as much as my space. When I came back from South Africa for the first time, and I experienced apartheid,
and my dad returning home after 30 years of being gone, and we're there in the ends of apartheid, and I got to experience like real oppressive racism.
Right.
I just came home and I was like, nope.
Not having it.
Because you understood what it was at that point. You knew what you were defending. Before, it's almost like confusing that somebody would be that angry about something nonsensical.
Yeah, it was just it was ignorance, and you're a kid, and so you're still trying to fit in, and at times you're trying to figure out how to laugh because you're the only you. You don't have a bunch of your people to back you up. But yeah, and you know, in the industry, absolute plenty. I mean, I still get it. The microaggressions of it all the time, where people want to pat you on the back and be like, "Wow, it's so cool that you learned that ESPN taught you all of those things." Like, because you don't do those sports, do you? You know, like shit like that you get your whole career, or you're so well spoken.
That kills me.
You're so well spoken. You don't sound like a regular black guy. You know what? It's cool that you're more like us. Like, you do our thing. Like, kids being unafraid to be like,
or you sound like a white guy. You sound like a
so
that just
when you were explaining earlier the trauma that stays with you after the police encounters, and I could certainly imagine the same or a different type of trauma when you're in the lineup and somebody is calling you that word and you don't defend yourself. It belittles you, and there's a trauma that you walk away with that. With the industry examples that you're talking about, what does that do to you? When people kind of speak to you in that way that they don't even know is derogatory?
I think Ryan's probably experienced it in certain ways too, especially as he's getting shine for the innovations and breakthroughs that he's responsible for and getting attention. It's very easy for people to say like, well, you know, that's only happening because he's black. You know, or he's only in this position.
They won't say that anymore because they know now I've got this growing platform.
But they used to have no problem saying
I won't go out and say which labels or which label. I won't do it. But major brand I've had serious issues with, and it's one of the reasons we don't work with them anymore.
And what exactly were they saying?
No N-word, just racial jokes.
Oh, okay.
You know, that if you're a white guy and you say a black joke to a black guy, it's not cool. It's never been cool.
Right.
And that happening in their space, in their headquarters, and it's a prestigious account.
As a way to let you know your place.
Yep. Smile, nod, take what I'm saying, or we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
And that was probably the hardest because it was right when this whole EcoBoard thing, we were getting validation for what we're doing, and I had to deal with that.
Yeah.
And dealt with it. Let it be okay. And now we don't work with that label anymore, and we don't have to. We don't need that label to succeed.
Good.
But yeah, that did a number on my psyche.
Yeah, it fucks with you.
And even talking to you about it, and
when we first met, it was just like,
he was like, "Whoa, what?"
When we first met at the Inertia Summit, and I saw the list of speakers, and I was like, "Oh, this EcoBoard person, Ryan Harris." I hadn't seen him yet, and I had went to the bathroom to get a drink, and I walk around and I see this dude on stage, and I'm like,
most non-ethnic name ever, by the way.
No,
if you
that's
read
true.
it on paper, you had no idea.
I was like, yo, that Ryan Harris is black as fuck. This is the dude I was so excited. I couldn't even believe it. I was like, wait, not only a black shaper, but a black shaper who's like from the future. And I was just sitting there like a fanboy waiting to talk to this dude. And then we started talking, and as soon as we started talking, it was just like all of the commonality of the stories and the experience, and you know, seeing each other when it's bolstering, because I think what people fail to understand is that when you are when you're the only person who looks like you in a space, your perspectives can sound like you're talking about like some shit from Mars. Mm-hmm. Like your point of view that they're not used to hearing. It's very easy for people to be like, yeah, anyway, so we were saying.
Right. Interesting. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do, kind of, yeah.
Like, unless I'm speaking
from the perspective of the group,
Yeah.
people don't have time for this other angle. And so you learn how to assimilate, speak the language, learn how to insert your shit in almost like a Trojan horse kind of way, but you don't get to be your whole self with your whole voice. And you find yourself like, is it okay? Is it cool? Can I be this loud? Can I be this direct? Can I be this, critical?
Well, more on that. Do you feel added pressure being the spokesperson for the only person in your position?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that black people that are in mostly white spaces have to be twice as good all the time.
Yep.
To succeed.
What about that Rhonda Harper thing a week or two ago where she's...
I knew you were going to bring that up, dude.
Well, I'm curious.
I don't know her.
Okay, so she, quote, put you on notice, I think was the title of her thing.
Yeah.
Essentially saying that you've only used your opportunities and privilege to benefit yourself and that you haven't done anything for the black community. Firstly, what's your response to that? And then secondly, do you have an obligation to the black community as kind of the figurehead and this is for both you guys, in your own respective spaces?
I'm going to preface this by saying I am not wholly or entirely sure that I've ever met that person in real life. If I did, it was maybe briefly at an event, but I don't know that woman, as in have a relationship or communication with that person. Also, it was stated that I grew up in Malibu in that rant and had a silver spoon in my mouth and all these other things, which I grew up in Staten Island, New England, and San Diego and started surfing when I was 17.
So there's inaccuracies in the picture that she painted.
Rife with a plethora of inaccuracies. As far as my responsibility to the black community, my responsibility to myself when I look in the mirror is to make sure I'm doing everything I can to uphold my blackness and speak on the issues that need to be spoken about, to make sure that I'm standing up for myself and what I believe in. When my partner Steve LaRosiere and I started Stoked mentoring 15 years ago, it was explicitly with the sole purpose of getting black and brown children that look like us that don't get the opportunity to get in the water to not only be exposed to the culture and learn how to surf, but how to have the life principles associated with falling down and getting back up, building new relationships, negotiating a new environment, and building confidence that you can do whatever you want and you put your mind to in that environment, taking those skills and applying that into building better human beings who could go on to graduate from high school, graduate from college, with an idea of who they are and that the entire world, outside of just their city blocks or their history of their family, is what they have access to. That's what we've been doing with Stoked since 2005 when we started, in 2006 when we got our 501c3. So those are my responsibilities that I feel that I've shouldered as far as awareness of the community. That rant was when someone goes online and uses your dead father's name to try and get a rise out of you, to tell you that you're failing the black community. Blackness is not a monolith.
Right.
We are a very layered and diverse community that has sibling rivalries and all different sorts of idealistic differences about how to go about gaining freedoms,
about how to go about gaining awareness, all with good intention, but there are lots of differences. And we coalesce in the best ways we know how, when necessary, across the board. Like, there's a beacon that goes up that says, okay, whatever the side beefs are in the family, like, everyone comes together for this now. So all I can say about that situation is that it was saddening. I don't understand why, because the landscape of what's possible for expansion of what surfing looks like when it comes to black people and people of color is endless.
Yep.
And the more people that I find out about that are doing the work and the way that they're doing the work, the more excited I am to meet them and try and support them. A case in point being Danielle and Chelsea and company at Textured Waves. As soon as I saw what they were doing about 6 or 7 months ago, I was like, wow.
This is cool.
Not only these women telling their story, but they're making content. Mm-hmm. They are showing representation to young black women and the surfing community about what else this can look like without waving a flag and being like, hey, we're black. It's just like, yo, this is also what it feels like.
This is also a surfer.
So what are they doing?
What's that?
What are they doing? What is Textured Waves?
Textured Waves is Danielle Black Lions and Chelsea. Chelsea's last name.
Can't think of it right now.
Yeah. They are African American female surfers, and they created this group, and they get women that have never surfed before, African American women that have never surfed before, and there's a lot of things which that in and of itself is actually really powerful, because there's all these stereotypes that we play into and whatnot, but the sisters and the hair. You know, black women don't swim because of the hair. And they're out there literally, he's bringing up a picture.
I mean, it's
a symbol. That is a beacon.
Yeah.
Just that, what they're doing is a beacon. And they're empowering other African American women.
And women in general.
Women in general.
of color across the landscape.
Yeah.
Like, they happen to be 4 black women that founded this platform of Textured Waves as a way of saying, hey, not only do we represent blackness and natural hair and dispelling the myths that we can't participate and make this a lifestyle,
right.
But also, like, any other types of women that are feeling excluded by the picture that surfing paints of, like, you know,
blonde hair,
a size 0, size 2, blonde hair, blue eye
Yeah.
is the only way that you can fit into and look and feel in the wholeness of your body and experience as a surfer. We're here to smash all of that.
Yep.
Color, body shape, whatever it is, like, we live this life too.
It's diversity in the lineup.
Yeah.
What-
And
That's it.
I was asking about what you guys feel like your obligation is, or if you have an obligation. As it relates to the surf world, what are the brands' obligations at this point? I know we were talking the other day about various brands reaching out to you guys to ask about what they can do in response to Black Lives Matter. And so what is, their obligation, and what do you think is the best way for them to proceed kind of from this moment forward in time?
I'm going to drop in our collective at this point in terms of the how, because several big companies, I'd say even competitors, right, to my little business, have reached out and just, they don't even know what to do, what platform they can use. Who do we donate to? It's the who and it's the how. How can we help? Who do we donate to? Top 2 questions I've been getting. And I had to do research. You know, I look up to Sal, and in a sense, he is one of the reasons I started speaking up, because here I am. So the day George Floyd was killed, I'm surfing the surf ranch. And the next day I'm driving back and I saw your feed and I was like, oh shit, here we go again.
You had no idea.
I had
because
no
you were
effing
removed.
clue.
Right.
I think it happened the day before, and it took maybe 2 or 3 days to get some traction and blow up. But I was posting videos of my experience at the surf ranch, and hadn't said a peep, hadn't said anything, hadn't talked to my folks, hadn't talked to my dad in particular, and Sal and I had a conversation about a week in, and not even 20 minutes after I talked to him, Sal just called. Or not Sal, Stab called. And at that moment, I chose to, well, you know, I do have a voice. People are going to listen to what the fuck I have to say. And I do have answers and I do have obligations, but this is what these brands need to do as a people. It's bigger than going into what I'm going to talk about. It's bigger than a black thing. It's a human rights thing. It's a human thing. And it just so happens that we're surfers and we care about the freaking environment also. So as his paddle out in Encinitas that Danielle and the Textured Waves group put together, we kind of all started getting this idea of what can we do, because there was this Blackout Tuesday, right? And there were all these rules that about how you should post, and then don't use the hashtag Black Lives Matter, and if you're black, you can just post whatever the hell you're going to post on the daily. And there's all these rules, and I'm like, what? I posted, and then people told me to pull it because I didn't do it right, and I got confused, and it just lit a fire under my ass, and I was like, you know what? Why don't we do something? Why don't we do something that's more all-encompassing and collective? And so we started this collective activation that, oddly enough, launched today, and it's really important because it's about the planet and it's about everyone. It is about Black Lives Matter. It's also about the LGBTQ community. It's a human rights thing, and taking better care of us as a people and our planet. And it's 1Planet1People. And that's what we've started. And I'm really, really excited about it. And that's actually, knowing we were going to do that, when all these brands started asking me what to do, I said, well, pause for a second. I got something for you in a week. And so that's what's going on. And I'm like literally getting butterflies talking about it, because I think it's going to do some real good, because one of the biggest problems is people are just giving money. They want to help. They want to put money to good use. There's a lot of false information out there.
Yep.
And a lot of GoFundMe accounts that have been set up, and that money's going into people's pockets, and it's not having any results really, right? What organizations are actually doing good, and that's the stuff that information needs to be out there. So we've done a ton of research and figured out and know what organizations and nonprofits are actively doing good. And it's to, the collective activation is a network and a list of all these organizations that we believe in and know that are vetted and doing the right thing. And it's also about having fact-based information readily available so people can learn. Get educated.
What do you think brands' obligations are in this moment?
Well,
I didn't even answer your question. I don't
No, you did, actually.
No, I believe that the surf industry has played gatekeeper for a very long time as to who gets to participate, and has, in turn, I don't think the industry has grown, and I don't feel like it's like the surf industry story hasn't evolved with the world. I feel like it stayed as the same as it was in the early 2000s, just a little bit cleaner and a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this lifestyle is lived by so many different types of people for whom like this lifestyle informs who they are as human beings. And from the industry side, it's like, where are you getting your talent from when you're hiring? Just for starters, have you figured out ways to really deep dive and find the best talent available outside of just the bro circle? What would it look like if you were able to get 2 or 3% of your employees, or 5% of your employees even, to come from different walks of life that are super talented, but are going to offer different perspective and point of view in creativity, in marketing, in brand direction, and also figuring out the ways with the tools you have to open up the door. What other type of stories that can you tell, or can you use your platform for, to amplify stories, right? Give people the tools, or utilize your platform to tell stories that maybe aren't just rooted in like who rips the hardest,
Right.
and or who's traditionally the coolest. Like what you read in the Surfer's Journal and what like the cool guy's surf landscape looks like is like two different things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Meaning that the Surfer's Journal has done a good job of staying diverse?
I think the Surfer's Journal is the best version of what that looks like. I haven't seen brands outside of a few smaller ones figure out how to really storytell in a way that shows that they're engendered to the totality of what the community looks like.
Yeah.
And that, I understand the resistance. I understand people saying, well, it's very, I don't even understand. I understand the ignorance associated with like, people think, oh, we got to check boxes or virtue signaling. Like, I'm sorry that you grew up and you thought that like your neighborhood is the definition of surfing.
Right.
That shit is over.
Well,
Yeah. I think too, that's why guys like Mikey February and Hunter Jones are so fucking important right now, because they shatter the mold, and they're fully sponsored surfers. They've completely changed that image, and that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Well, I think what brands have failed to realize as well, and like the older kind of surf industry model of gatekeeper that you're talking about, it's only limited their growth as a brand. Like, it's crazy, and they've all.
We're talking about money.
So if aside from morals, ethics, if you just did it based on the bottom line, they would have diversified the board of directors a long time ago. And by the way, each of the brands we don't need to name because we know who they are, who have gone public, have all failed once they've gotten to that level. And it's because they stayed core to the same demographic over and over again, and they were never able to bridge the divide. As soon as they tried to bridge the divide, the core abandoned them. So they didn't have the core anymore, and the broad market didn't accept it because it's not geared for the broad market.
No.
So the diverse, starting from kind of that board of directors level, does exactly what you said. You now have inputs from a different worldview that are going to tell you what a female wants and what a female thinks and how they would like to be marketed to, the products that they would want, different ethnicities mixed into that too.
Yeah.
So it's the right business decision.
It's a good business model. It's not about like, a lot of brands have reached out to me, and lately I've just been like, if you're trying to fix something, don't come talk to me. Like, if you're trying to fix something or you're afraid about how to continue to do business in the wake of this, like, no matter what you do, you're going to get heat. If you decide to come out in front of this issue, you're going to, a third of the people who follow you are going to hem and haw and scream about how this is racist against you and all lives matter and all that shit. Are you willing to weather that storm to build a bigger story for what your brand is and make more money on the other side? But you got to walk through the fire first.
Yep.
I feel like they should just do it quietly. You know, I would actually like to hear your guys' feedback on that. I'm getting all these emails from companies that maybe I signed up for the mailing list 10 years ago, and they're telling me their position on Black Lives Matter. And my thought is, in one sense, great. Let's keep the conversation public. But on another sense, I'm like, dude, first of all, I do not care. And secondly, do it quietly. If you're really about change.
Don't do it. You don't need to send out a company email.
Yeah.
Or does that add to kind of the awareness?
It's 50-50.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Some of these brands have the ability to reach people
for whom the greatest, most, ingenuitive activists and marketers of activist messages can't reach.
Agreed.
And so, one of the big three deciding to say, we as a brand believe that racism isn't political, it's just wrong. To me, that's not the end of the world. To say that that's where we stand and you'll be hearing more from us or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Like, do I think that people need to do it to score points? And I see a lot of brands being opportunistic in it. Yeah. Well, I mean, the long game is always going to show, oh, you did that because you wanted to get out of this situation and it's back to normal. So I don't think that all the brands, unless it's what you want to do, unless you feel like you realize that this is inherent to your brand DNA and this is the direction you want to grow in, it's better that you don't say anything.
Agreed.
Because you will get, the sun is going to shine on your bullshit at some point.
Agreed.
So while I agree, all these brands shouldn't line up and be like, and there should be like a test of whether or not they're racist. I do believe that if you're compelled at this time, because this is about us as a total society. If you feel like your brand has a conscience and you've stood for other things before, then you should figure out what that looks like. Or as you said, don't say anything. Figure out what works according to who you are and what your brand is, and show people in your messaging, in your marketing, in your storytelling, that this, in your hiring, in the actual tangible things that can be a difference. Because if you're just gonna post something and think that that's good, like that's enough, then we don't need your help.
And it also kind of, my final thought, like after I've thought about it for a few weeks, is like, I don't want to add to the cacophony of noise. It's not my time to speak.
Right.
Like, there's people who have things to say.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
And which is why I tell people, like, consult. Like, ask questions. Ask questions of people who are on the front line. Because if you're just going to say something to say something, it is pointless.
It just adds
to Ryan's point earlier, like, when it comes to the surf community, like, this conversation about Black Lives Matter is right now pertinent to something that this country has been experiencing since its founding. It is our hope, sincere hope, that we're not having this conversation on a daily basis. I don't wake up and want to talk about racism in any way, shape, or form. It's the last thing that I want to discuss. It literally, like, it takes energy and it's stressful and it brings up old trauma all the time. Yep. So I don't want to be in the fucking racism education business. However, if I see a space that I'm in that clearly, like, has some issues as regards race, like surfing, like snowboarding, and I'm in that space, I'm gonna bang some pots around. Yeah. Because I want you to see me. Like, people are always like, oh, but I don't see color. Oh, that's actually your problem.
Dude, I was just saying this the other day.
That's actually your problem. You've chosen to lump me in with your experience and background, not take the time to get any perspective about what my journey might be, so that when shit happens in the world, you can be like, I didn't know. I love you, bro. I don't see color. All lives matter.
It's so disingenuous.
I was saying to him the other day, if I had a fucking bumper sticker on my car that said "Save the Whales," would you come up to me and be like, what the fuck about the tuna and the sharks?
No.
No.
Nope.
No.
No, you wouldn't. You'd be like, yeah, bro, save the whales.
Totally.
And also, yes, do the sharks count? Yes, but right now, like, yo, the whales are getting fucked up. Can you come help us with this message? Absolutely.
Yeah.
With the idea that, yes, all fish matter, but we're here working on the fucking whales. Yeah. Which is why the All Lives Matter shit to me is the biggest fucking cop-out. It's a cop-out.
Yeah.
It is so fear-based at gaining knowledge that's going to have to force you to shift your perspective of the world you've been in. People are just scared. They're like, but now I'm gonna have to see shit differently, and that's gonna make me have to call into question what my existence has been. And all lives matter. I'm sorry. Yeah. And also, like, I need you to not say the Black Lives Matter thing because it makes me very uncomfortable. And actually, the more I think about it, it's racist. So I really need you to stop because now you're being racist against me. And also, by the way, side note, I have no idea what the word racism means.
On the Daily today, it was Dr. Dana Ramey Berry that they interviewed. She's a professor of history at University of Texas at Austin. And she talked about every step forward or like significant step forward for the civil rights movement. There's always a reactionary movement. So after abolishing slavery, then we have like lynchings. Sometimes it's a legal recourse like Jim Crow laws. Other times it's just a social reaction from people basically who don't want their lives to change, like you were just saying. But I'm curious, do you guys feel with what's going on with Black Lives Matter, that is a pretty big it's a huge social movement, but you do have a president, like the highest level of leadership in the country, who's not spoken one word of solidarity at all.
And the complete opposite. So
there very well could be a kind of reactionary thing that we see come out of Black Lives Matter.
We're in it.
We're in it. We're absolutely
just look at the Karens.
So do you...
We're in it. The Karens and the Kens.
So
in your local parking lots.
The question is, do you feel optimistic or pessimistic about this moment in time and where we're going forward?
I've never... You want to go first, Ryan?
I mean, I've never seen anything like it.
So and are you optimistic? Or?
That some good comes out of it. I think the thing that I'm most happy about is, you know, all these people, these peaceful protests that have been going on, most of them have been organized by young people. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
But, you know, that's got to morph into voting. We're not that far from November. And that's how this change is going to happen. People have to vote. And so the good thing is these peaceful protests have been organized by young people. But the saddening thing is to implement the change, you have to vote and get the leaders in power to reflect our voices. But I haven't seen one vote the change or any voting registration people at any of these protests. So I hope that this energy doesn't die from the young people.
Yeah. Because I don't think... I've never been more optimistic. And I'm super skeptical because, as we've said, we've been dealing with this shit our whole lives. Mm-hmm. And I come from a generation of historically of my dad railed against a similar system for his whole life. But I have never been so excitedly optimistic about a large collective of non-black people, especially white people, who are like, you know what? I get it now.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pissed off about it.
And I'm pissed off. And I would like all of the homework assignments that I missed. And I'm going to figure out what tools I have that will allow me to contribute. And I also want to listen so I could learn to utilize my power, because actually I thought this whole time that it was you guys who need to end it. And I'm seeing those people who are realizing like, oh, we actually have the power and they can't end this without us, as far as the system is concerned. And I do believe that it was COVID that made the landscape possible.
Sure.
Because people didn't have places to hide or be busy with bullshit. And the fact that, like, especially the ramp up to George Floyd, we had all these horrible incidents. Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, you know, the Central Park video was a key one. But if George Floyd had been shot, I don't even believe we would have been having this conversation right now.
And it had been filmed.
Even if he had been filmed and shot, we are conditioned as Americans to understand, boom, gunshot, that person's dead, must have been a reason for it, sad, on with our lives. Like, that's just America. We are built on that level of violence to the point where we have accepted life by gun loss to be almost equitable with like a car accident. And especially when it's black and brown people with the police, gunshot is actually easier. But because, again, of COVID, everyone's attention focused in the same direction, you had a man in handcuffs for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, the life leaving his body in close-up on video, begging for his life, calling for his mother as his soul is wrestling to transition to the afterlife, the calm of the 4 policemen, the one on the neck, the one standing in front, and the other 2 almost stoic in the action, and then the voices of the people behind the camera begging them not to kill him.
They could tell what was going on.
No matter who you are, no matter how stone-hearted you are, in that moment, because we're all connected as human beings, you had to fucking feel it.
Yep.
And then the choice was, fuck, is this going to actually like now give me access to all the stuff I've been suppressing? Or am I going to find a place to run and hide from this because I can't believe this is happening. There's got to be a reason for it. And a huge, significant amount of people said, this is it. I can see now. They were like Neo in the Matrix. Like, oh my God, I can see the code.
And now time.
We have to capitalize on it. That day at Encinitas, did I think that there was going to be a couple thousand people that were going to come down to Encinitas with their surfboards painted up with all the names of young black men and women who had lost their lives to the police in the last decade, with stone faces on and with their children and these signs that they painted and there with their children for a teaching moment in Encinitas, California? No way. And they weren't there for lip service. You felt the energy that day, and it was like, oh, this is different. And then to see the way all around the world, these utilizing like the most nurturing thing about surfing is the paddle out that the Polynesians gave us when it comes to the human spirit. And to see this utilized around the world to honor the spirit of not just George Floyd, but like this ending of racism, this intolerance of racism, the surfing community in large swaths saying we're not going to stand on the sidelines anymore, that shit gives me immense, immense, immense hope. Those people who decided to do one in Huntington Beach in their own backyard, knowing what they were up against with their community and that their neighbors who they knew when they went to high school with were going to come out with their flags and chant USA, USA, like the idea of curing racism isn't also USA, USA. I am hopeful.
I honestly think, I was asking about the reactionary thing. I feel like this is actually the reaction. Like the world that we have been living in the last decades leading up to this has gotten so discouraging as an American. It doesn't feel like America anymore. That this is almost like, no, America is this change, you know? And the quote that I said to you the other day, which isn't my quote, was that there's nothing wrong with America currently that what's right with America can't fix.
That was so...
And I fully believe that. I fully believe it.
When you said that, I was
awesome.
like, what came out of me the other day that I'd never said before was that when I looked out in that crowd and I said, this is the America we can be.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it couldn't happen in the way we were before because there was just too many places to hide. Now we got no place to hide. We're in the middle of like, we're battling a fucking pandemic.
Yeah.
And like, oh, why don't we just like, oh, pandemic? Would you like the side of the largest global civil rights movement ever at the same time in the midst of total economic instability? Here, just go. Knock yourselves out. All you can eat.
What do you have a website set up? I'm in the interest of time.
Yeah,
we gotta start wrap.
Yeah.
What's the website? For 1Planet1People.
It's literally the number 1Planet1People.com.
Okay.
It's really cool because we're trying to get, we're establishing legitimacy by having, a lot of smart people on there with doctorates and published articles, and it's
going to be a good information source.
Good.
Yeah.
I'll make sure to direct everybody to it in the post.
We're not selling anything.
No.
We're, selling the idea of education.
Good. We end every episode or every interview with talking about surfboards.
Oh, you already know.
We all rode the pool ninja. Is this the first ever surfboard that's specifically designed for a pool?
Shane actually schooled me on that.
Okay.
Because I thought it was. Shout out to Chemistry Boards. They have or had a shape called the pool toy.
Okay.
But it was
because Shane works with them, and
Yeah.
in Texas they developed that.
But this is
you
the first
introduced the Pool
eco
Ninja,
one.
the first eco
Yeah.
pool specific board. It's called the Pool Ninja.
Yep.
We all rode one on Wednesday 2 days ago. My very first, I'll just give you my experience real quick. I stood up. That left was so different than the right, first of all. And it's a wonky takeoff that goes into like almost complete flat, and then there's kind of a wedge section coming at you. I stood up on one late, and I thought it was going to be like a sketchy. I was just in the whitewash, and it was just going to. I stood up on that board. It felt like I was standing on a coffee table. It was so stable. Just looked over at the lip. The board just bottom turned by itself, cracked the lip, landed it. It was like the smoothest, butteriest magic carpet ride. Loved it from the instant that I got on it.
Well, you didn't even you were on another board, and the second you got on that one, you didn't get off.
No.
Sal was doing meat hook turns.
Once I realized that that I didn't have to muscle it.
No, that exactly.
And that I could actually just set the rail and wait to explode at the top. That's when I surfed best on it. But I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, I think 5'11" was the one that I was riding.
Yeah.
You say it'd get him 4 inches shorter than your normal thruster?
Yeah, I mean it varies. It's if you got the minerals, you can go shorter, but like the pros, so Shane and Hunter, they were both on 5'4s.
Oh,
and they're not little. They're stocky.
Yeah, but they're like Shane's probably like Shane's in the fittest version of Shane.
Yeah,
that we've seen.
Yeah,
he was living in Texas eating barbecue every day.
Now he's ripped Shane Mag from like 2002.
Yeah, I think their volume's 27, 28.
No way.
Maybe.
Okay.
But I mean, to see pros on them just going.
Shane was going ham.
He was going
so
absolutely batshit.
It's EPS foam, stringerless. It's got the reflex.
It's not stringer. So it's also it's new shape and it's a new tech. It's my tech.
What's the tech?
It's called Reflex. It's something I developed. It is technically not stringerless. We make here our own tech. The tech is inside the blank, not on top of it.
Is it a composite stringer?
It is a composite stringer that we make here with organic material. And it looks like carbon because it's black, but it's not.
Got it.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
And it's also, so the
it's
board...
got a lot of memory.
Ride it shorter than your thruster, and then also tell me about the contour on the deck that goes into the rails, because the center of the deck's an inch thicker than the rails probably are almost.
It is totally flat. It's a completely flat deck. So the whole concept behind it was let the board do the work. If you can make a shape where the board is doing, because we're not all Slater, we're not all pro surfers. If the board's doing as much work as possible, then you're going to get a better riding experience. And so contours on the bottom are really important, but why not have something on the top and on the rails that is helping your surfing as well? So we pack in as much volume on the top up under your chest for maximum paddle power with a flat deck, and then on the rails we do this step rail, but then we've added a concave in that step.
Yeah.
And with a more elliptical shape, meaning more like a wider nose and a wider tail, you're going to have more rail in the water.
Yep.
So if you have a concave in the rail, it's going to do what? It's going to help speed up the board just like a double concave on the bottom.
So for listeners who couldn't imagine what you're talking about, it's like an edge bottom board, but on the deck.
Yeah.
It's that same contour.
Yeah.
I have that same tech in 2 boards.
Yeah.
Of Ryan's. One is, what's the orange one?
So Electrical Ninja.
The Electrical
Ninja. Part
Ninja.
of the Electrical Ninja family.
The Electrical Ninja is
You're on that board.
It's a 5'8". It's the funnest, fastest surfboard that I've ever ridden. It's the fastest surfboard I've ever ridden,
really?
for sure.
Yep. So this is that. This borrows that and just mashed up with a shortboard. So
Well, the
more pulled in.
the other thing I had never ridden or seen, I don't think even before, is the single channel out the bottom. Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, and that's actually pretty important too because it changes your rocker line.
Yeah.
And as you're surfing, one thing's, it's a diagonal, heel toe. So it's changing your rocker line continuously.
You can't ask this as the last question with him.
I know. Sorry.
It's like,
Sorry.
You're just going to get it's another podcast.
We'll post photos. Anyways, the Pool Ninja, everybody. Dude, and by the way, I told you in that message, I'm like, the Pool Ninja that is now becoming my Pacific Ninja. Because I'm going to ride the thing in the ocean way more than I'll ride it in the pool.
I was thinking the same thing the other day. I was like, ooh, this thing on a 2-foot day, 3-foot day is going to be really interesting, especially off the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. I went there to the pool in March, literally the next week, COVID regulations. Boom, done. It's here. And I had a conversation with Shane, and that's kind of what started the fire.
Okay. Cool.
So
the board's amazing.
Yeah, I think, we legitimately have a chance to have one of the number one shapes of the year.
Yeah.
For sure.
I would love to see
Without a
that.
doubt.
I also have to do one thing.
Yeah.
When is this thing going live?
Wednesday.
Okay.
Oh,
Follow my podcast. It's coming.
Shoot.
End of the month.
We talked about it before the mics went on.
It's called What Shapes Us. Follow us at What Shapes Us Podcast.
Awesome.
Coming soon.
Awesome.
coming soon.
Because no one's doing any podcasts. So
All right. Selema, Masekela,
yes.
Ryan Harris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time. It's an
Yeah.
important day, and I appreciate you guys taking an hour and a half.